All right, so let's remind ourselves what we're shooting for. So here's our prototype. Here we are back at our prototype. So remember, there are two components in our prototype. So we got the first component is this text at the top, the welcome, and then the text below it. And then our second component is this text on, or the image and the text below it. So there's a logo and then the caption below it. So we got two components. So that means when we set up our app, let's go back to our app. So we're going to have two separate files. So each component lives in a separate file by itself. Also, I should mention that you can have nested components. So you can have components within components. So you could say this whole screen is a component. And then within that component, you got two subcomponents, the text in the red box and the logo and the text in the blue box. You could have even subcomponents of that. So you can subdivide components in smaller pieces. So each component, let's go back to our code. Each component, for now we have just two components. We got the text at the top and the image below it. Each component is going to live in its own separate file. That file is going to be in our components folder here. Okay, so let's go ahead and make up those two files for those two components. So I'll click on the components folder. There's nothing there now. And I'll go up here to these three icons up here. The one on the left here is where we make a new file. So when I click on that, notice now it gives me, I can choose a file name. So let's call the component with the text at the top, maybe intro. Okay, and it's customary to capitalize the file name. So notice how I made capital I intro, and then .js. You always want to put an extension, a dot with a JS at the end, and that tells it that's a JavaScript file. So I make an intro.js. Notice it's an empty file right now. I haven't put anything in it, so it's a blank slate. Let's make another one. So we're also going to make one for the logo. Let's call it logo, capital LOGO.js. Okay, and that one is also empty right now. Okay, so now we have our two files for our two components. So let's go ahead and make the top one, the intro component. So that has a text at the top that says welcome, and then below it there's some text. Kalani High School is a 9 through 12 high school in East Honolulu. Okay, so we're gonna need a view. Let's think about what we need. We need a view because everything has to be in a view. In each component, everything is contained within a view. Then within the view, we need a text. Remember, there's a core component called a text where you put text, and we need another text. So probably two text components within this view of this intro component. Okay, so let's go ahead and make that. So now a component file has the same structure as the main file. The top is the imports, the middle is the main body, and then the bottom is the styling. So same structure. So imports, well, we're always going to need import React from React. Okay, pay attention to everything. So the capitalization, the single quotes, and then the semicolon. So we're always going to need that one. Oh, and let me switch back to my intro.js and make sure I'm in that file. So you're always going to need import React from React. And any core components, just basic built-in building blocks that we're going to use. So we said we're probably going to need a view and a text. So let's import those. So import curly brace, capital V view, comma, capital T text from React-Native, semi. Okay, so that'll pull in the basic core components that we're going to use as building blocks. Okay, so main function part. So the middle section is going to be the main function part. So it always follows a script. There's always a pattern. Export default function, and the name of the function. Now the name of the function has to match the name of the file, which we called intro with a capital I. It's going to be intro, some parentheses. Now this would be where we put, if we're going to pass in some parameters. So in other words, give the function some extra information that it can use to customize itself. Okay, but in this case, we're not going to need to put in any information because it's always going to be the same no matter what. So we leave it empty, and then we have our curly brace. Okay, so inside the curly brace, we have our return statement. That's going to kick whatever it constructs in here back to the main program, and in other words, back to the main app, which in turn will send it back to the device and display it. Put parentheses, and then outside the closed parentheses, you put a semicolon. Okay, so inside that return parentheses, that grouping parentheses, we put all the code that's going to make that component. So remember what we're shooting for. We're shooting for this. So we're looking at that red box. Welcome, exclamation point, and then Kalani High School is a 9 through 12 high school in East Honolulu. So let's put that welcome in the first text. Okay, so let's put a view. Everything's got to be within a view. You got to have a view in every component. And then inside that view, then let's put a text. Okay, inside that text, I'll put welcome, exclamation point. Okay, and I'll put the closing tag. Okay, so there's my stuff. Now, you're probably wondering, well, I don't see it. When I look on the emulator here on the right, I don't see it. How come? We put some stuff there. There's no red, so there's no errors, but it's not showing up. Okay, well, that's because we have to go back to our main app, and we have to put it there. Our main app is what it's showing right now, and as of now, it's just empty. So we got to put our new component into our main app. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So go back to my file space, go back to app.js. Okay, right now it's just an empty view, but now we're going to put in our intro component that we just made. So there's 2 steps to do this. We've got to import it. So we go back to the top section here, and we've got to import it. Okay, so here's how we're going to import it. Import intro from single quote / components / intro. Okay, so let's take a look at what I just did. I made an import statement. So it starts with the word import. Okay, this time I don't have any curly braces around it, kind of like line 1, so I don't need curly braces. Import intro, that's the name of my component, was intro, notice a capital I, from, and then I have / components / intro. So what this is, it tells it how to find it, it tells it the file path. So / components means go into the components directory, and then in the components directory, you look for the file called intro. Okay, now we don't need to put the .js. We don't need to put the extension because it assumes it's going to be in a JS file. So you don't need to put that. So you can just put the name of the file itself and end it there. Okay, so import, the name of the component is intro from, and then this green part here tells it where to find it. So / components means go into the components folder, and then in the components folder, intro, you look for the file called intro.js. I'm just going to pull it in. So that's one thing you got to do. So once you make your own component, you got to import it into your main app. And then now let's put it inside the view. Okay, so that component is going to be inside our view. So now that we've imported it, you can treat it like any other component. So in other words, you can now just make it as, you can use it as kind of like an HTML tag. You can have an opening tag and a closing tag. Okay, so like I did here. And you can use the name of the app or the name of the component as the name of your tag. So I use just intro. And notice now when I look on my emulator, see there's the text up here in the upper left-hand corner, welcome. Now it's not exactly like how we want, of course. Ours, we wanted it to be kind of bold and bigger and centered. But for now, at least we got something up. So at least it's coming up. So there it is. Okay, so that's how you make a component. Now, a couple of little things. So notice how I said I could use the name of my component as an HTML tag. There's nothing in that tag. I'm not going to put anything in it. In the view tag, I was going to put some more stuff inside the view tag, but for this intro component, nothing needs to go inside of it. It's just, it does everything it needs to by itself. So what I can do is instead of having an opening and a closing, I can also make it a so-called self-closing tag. So I can shortcut it, I can do like that. So instead of having an opening and a closing, I can just have one tag called intro, and then at the end I put a slash and an end angle bracket, and that's what's called a self-closing tag. That's a tag where you're not going to have anything inside of it. It's just going to be there by itself. Again, that works as well. So you can see it here on the emulator, it's fine. The other thing is I'm going to prettify this. So if you look at the bottom bar where all these controls are, notice that one says prettier. If I click on that, what the editor does is it kind of fixes the indentation and things. It just makes it easier for your code to read your code, for you to see your code. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and save it because I've done some work, so I don't want to lose it. And now we're all set. Okay, so we got our first component up. Now, in addition to the welcome text, it's also got some other text there. So let's go ahead and put that inside. The other text is just plain text, body text. Kalani High School is a 9 through 12 high school in East Honolulu. So let's put that in. So let's go back to our component, and it lives in this intro.js. So we've got one text component, which is just a welcome message, and we're going to put another one. Let me put another text, which is going to be that little paragraph there. Kalani High School is a 9-12 high school in East Honolulu, and close off that text. Okay, so I added some stuff. So now you can see on the emulator here on the right, see there it is. So there's my welcome text, and then there's my text below it. Not exactly like how we wanted it centered and the welcome text a little bit bigger and bold, but at least we got something up. Let me go ahead and prettify this function so it's a little bit nicer to look at, and let me save it. Okay, so that's how we set up our basic component. So you just have these files that each contain a component, and you set it up the same way you do your main file. You have your imports at the top, you got your main body in the middle, and then for now, let's not worry about styling yet. Let's just get the content up. But if we wanted to style it, then we could put stuff at the bottom. Okay, so what we'd also need to do is we'd also need to go and do that for our logo file. We'd also have to include whatever stuff we need to get up this logo and the caption beneath it. But let's save that for another segment.